Before we get to the moment when Senator Josh Hawley learned the hard way that mocking someone's education only works when your own academic history is spotless, make sure you subscribe and tap the notification bell. What you're about to watch reveals exactly how academic arrogance collapses on itself when your own record is built on privilege, exaggeration, and carefully hidden misconduct. The Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on judicial qualifications had lasted almost 2 hours, and Senator Josh Hawley was in rare form. He used his Yale Law credentials like a status badge, wielding them to belittle anyone he viewed as intellectually beneath him. So when Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett appeared as an expert witness to discuss the qualifications of several conservative judicial nominees, Hawley immediately saw an opening. To flex his resume and score easy political points, he leaned back with that familiar grin, his trademark look, the one that always appeared right, before he tried to intellectually steamroll. "Someone? Congresswoman Crockett," he said, his voice dripping with Ivy League superiority. Refined during his years at Stanford and Yale, I find it amusing that someone with a degree from the University of Houston Law Center feels qualified to judge judicial excellence. Those of us from real elite institutions, true centers of legal thought, should probably handle matters of constitutional interpretation. Was Houston even ranked in the top 100 when you attended? Maybe leave these complex issues to people with proper legal training. Those of us who studied under actual federal judges instead of practitioners at state schools. The room froze. A few Republican senators let out strained chuckles while Democrats stared wide-eyed at the blatant elitism. Hawley's smug expression only grew as he continued, obviously convinced he'd delivered a devastating blow to Crockett's credibility. He adjusted his tie another small flourish, meant to underline his supposed superiority, and waited for her to stumble through a defensive response, but that smirk vanished instantly when Crockett calmly opened her briefcase and removed a folder she had prepared specifically for that moment. In bold letters visible to every camera, the label read, "Hawley Academic Misconduct." She set the folder on the desk deliberately, the soft thud echoing through a suddenly silent room. She didn't raise her voice, didn't match his arrogance, and didn't let emotion touch her tone. Instead, she opened the folder with the steady precision of someone about to dismantle a long constructed facade. "Senator Hawley," Crockett began, her voice calm and measured, "since you've decided to question the value of legal education and where a person earns their degree, I believe this committee and the American public deserve the truth about your academic record. Not the polished version you've promoted for years. The real one." She held up several documents. The truth that you didn't actually write the Yale Law Review article that helped launch your career. The truth that you copied significant sections of your Stanford thesis. The truth that your class rank is not what you've claimed for nearly 2 decades. And most importantly, the truth that you've used questionable academic credentials to tear down others while hiding your own misconduct. Every camera captured Hawley's expression collapsing in real time. His confident smirk disappeared, replaced by confusion, then alarm, and finally outright fear. When he reached for his water glass, he knocked it over, sending water spilling across the table as he scrambled for napkins. His microphone picked up the sound of his uneven breathing as his calm facade completely crumbled. Moments earlier, the room had echoed with forced laughter at Crockett's expense. Now, absolute silence filled the chamber as Hawley struggled to regain composure. The story of how Crockett's team uncovered these explosive details stretched back months. They had anticipated that appearing before the committee would make her a prime target for condescending academic attacks, especially from Hawley, who frequently used his Ivy League background as ammunition against critics. What began as routine research quickly grew into something far larger. Working with academic integrity watchdogs, former classmates tired of Hawley's elitist persona, and most importantly, a whistleblower in Yale Law School's administrative office with access to sealed records, Crockett's team uncovered a pattern. Hawley's academic reputation had been built not on brilliance, but on privilege, exaggeration, and deliberate misrepresentation. For years, Josh Hawley had positioned himself as the intellectual backbone of conservative politics, the polished scholar, who blended elite education with populist messaging. But the documents Crockett held would expose that image as a carefully crafted illusion. Hawley's public biography highlighted his graduation from Stanford University and Yale Law School, his clerkship under Chief Justice John Roberts, his teaching role as a constitutional law professor, and his published work on religious liberty and originalism. He used these credentials like armor and ammunition, often brushing aside critics as intellectually inferior and portraying himself as the rare politician who possessed both elite academic training and a relatable understanding of constitutional law. But what almost no one realized was that most of Hawley's academic achievements were fabricated or exaggerated, an elaborate image that no one had seriously questioned simply because institutions like Stanford and Yale were assumed to have already vetted him. The reality behind the polished story was far more troubling. Hawley's acceptance into Stanford wasn't earned through academic excellence but through his father's influence. His father, a banker with deep ties to the university's fundraising office, had leveraged donations and relationships to secure his son's admission. Once at Yale Law School, Hawley's success wasn't the product of brilliance, but rather the result of ghost-written assignments, plagiarized work, and the kind of grade protection often given to politically connected students whom professors didn't dare challenge. Investigators uncovered that Hawley's well-known Yale Law Review article on religious liberty, the very publication that made his name in legal circles and led directly to his Supreme Court clerkship, hadn't been written by Hawley at all. The real author was Thomas Chun, a gifted classmate struggling financially at the time. He had been paid $5,000 to write the entire article, while Hawley spent his time cultivating contacts within the Federalist Society and building his political network. Chun had kept everything: drafts, email threads, and even recorded conversations in which Hawley openly discussed the arrangement. Those records stayed buried for years until Chun, sickened by Hawley's holier-than-thou political persona, stepped forward with the truth. Worse still, investigators found that Hawley had effectively run an academic cheating operation during his time at Yale. He created a system where wealthier students could buy papers, case analyses, and exam answers from classmates who desperately needed extra income. Hawley acted as the broker, taking a cut from every deal and using the same system to prop up his own academic standing. At least 17 students were identified as participants, with more than $80,000 passing through accounts tied to Hawley. As Crockett began dismantling Hawley's supposedly untouchable academic resume, she pulled out the first document and displayed it on the screens around the room. It was a certified Stanford University transcript obtained after months of navigating Freedom of Information Act hurdles. "This is Senator Hawley's actual undergraduate transcript from Stanford," she said, her voice steady and professional despite the explosive nature of the information. Although he claims he graduated Phi Beta Kappa with the highest honors, the truth is his GPA was a 3.1, barely above the Stanford average. He was never inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, never received academic distinctions, and his senior thesis, which he claims won a top university award, was actually flagged for serious plagiarism. She lifted another document. This one, an internal Stanford academic investigation report that had never before seen the light of day. "This is the university's plagiarism investigation file," she continued. "It shows that more than 40% of Senator Hawley's senior thesis was copied directly from other sources without proper citation. The case wasn't dismissed because he was innocent, but because his father made a $500,000 donation to Stanford's New Political Science building exactly 1 week after the investigation was halted." Hawley tried to interrupt, his voice cracking as panic seeped through the cracks in his persona. "These documents are fake," he insisted, though there was no strength behind the claim. "This is a coordinated attack. None of this is real." "False?" Crockett asked calmly, holding up yet another folder. "Then perhaps you can explain this affidavit from Professor James Morrison, your thesis advisor at Stanford." She read aloud Joshua Hawley submitted work that I knew contained plagiarized material. I was pressured by the administration to approve the thesis despite raising objections. I have lived with the guilt of this academic fraud for 20 years, and I am now willing to testify under oath. The committee room exploded with reaction. Republican senators who had defended Hawley moments earlier now subtly slid their chairs away from him. Democratic senators tried and failed to hide their satisfaction as Hawley's long-crafted image crumbled. The gallery buzzed with frantic whispers while reporters typed furiously. Racing to break the story of the unraveling academic scandal, Crockett wasn't even close to finished. She lifted another stack of papers, this set stamped with the seal of Eastbridge Law Institute, the prestigious school where Senator Haldon claimed he built his legal reputation. "Now let's talk about your years at Eastbridge Law," she said, her voice steady but cutting through the chamber like a blade. "Senator Haldon, your so-called groundbreaking law review article on religious freedom, the article you constantly boast about, the one you say earned your clerkship with the High Court, was not written by you at all." She held up an affidavit for the cameras. "This sworn statement is from Daniel Chun, your classmate. He confirms he wrote your entire article in exchange for $5,000. He turned over every draft, every email, every message where you discussed the deal. He even provided the bank transfer you sent him." The screens lit up with an email chain. Haldon had written, "Make it impressive enough to land me a federal clerkship. Add strong originalist arguments for conservative judges." Chun's reply included a file titled First Draft Haldon Article. The metadata showed the document was created by Chun alone, and not a single revision was ever made by Haldon. Crockett didn't slow down. She revealed spreadsheets from Haldon's time at Eastbridge showing payments, testimonies from students, and even a price list he created for buying academic work. The sheet listed everything. Constitutional law exam answers, $3,000. Law review notes, $5,000. Moot court briefs, $2,000. It was a detailed, organized system, a full-scale academic black market run by Haldon while pretending to be a serious scholar. Then came the document that shifted everything from academic dishonesty to possible criminal violations. Crockett held up a confidential report from Eastbridge's Academic Integrity Council. "This report," she said, "shows Senator Haldon was investigated for running what the university called an academic ghostwork operation, where wealthy students bought essays from financially struggling classmates. The committee found overwhelming evidence but stopped the investigation after. Haldon threatened to expose similar schemes used by other well-connected students. Eastbridge protected its image, but they kept every record." She then presented bank files showing that Haldon used these fabricated academic achievements to obtain prestigious jobs. His position as a constitutional law professor at Midwest State University had been secured using the ghost-written article as his primary credential. His salary there was over $200,000 per year for 6 years, more than $1.2 million earned through fraudulent qualifications, his board memberships, paid speeches, and book deals, all based on false academic claims, totaled more than $5 million. "This isn't just cheating in school," Crockett said firmly. "This is long-term professional fraud." Haldon tried to speak but kept turning to his lawyer. Whispering anxiously as the evidence kept piling up, Crockett revealed that Haldon had failed the state bar exam twice before finally passing on his third try, even though he claimed he passed easily. She displayed documents proving he falsified parts of his clerkship application at the High Court, including made-up academic honors that had never existed. But then she turned the moment back to the present. Hearing, Senator Haldon has used these fake credentials for years. He has attacked nominees, mocked colleagues, and acted like he is the final authority on constitutional law. Just today, he insulted my education. Crockett then placed her own records on the screen. "I graduated with highest honors from Houston Valley Law Center with a 3.96 GPA. I was editor-in-chief of the Law Review, where I personally wrote my own work. I passed the state bar on my first attempt with a score in the 96th percentile. I have argued 17 federal cases and won 14. I never cheated, never plagiarized, never bought a grade, and never inflated an achievement. My school may not be Ivy League, but every line of my resume is real. The difference between their records was overwhelming, and the chamber felt it instantly. On one side of the committee table sat Senator Hawley, now fully exposed as a man whose entire rise to power had been propped up by false credentials, privilege, and a long chain of academic fraud. And on the other side sat Representative Crockett, a woman whose accomplishments, though from schools far less decorated, were real, earned through discipline, late nights, and genuine talent. The room had gone completely silent. Every member of the committee, every reporter, every staffer felt the weight of what had just been revealed. The contrast between the two lawmakers had never been clearer. "Senator Hawley," Crockett said, her voice firmer now, "you asked earlier if my school, Houston Valley Law Center, was even ranked in the top 100. So let me explain something that Eastbridge Law apparently failed to teach you." She leaned forward. Not in anger, but in sharp sincerity. "Houston taught me that integrity outranks prestige. It taught me that the law is supposed to be about justice, not secret favors, not who your father knows, and not who can buy the most polished resume. It taught me that excellence comes from real achievement, not from purchased credentials. And more importantly, it taught me that using privilege to mock those who earn their success, honestly, is the behavior of someone who knows, deep down, that they are an imposter." Crockett reached for one more document. This one looked new, fresh ink, freshly dated. This letter arrived from Eastbridge Law Institute's dean just yesterday, after they completed their review based on the evidence we submitted. "They are beginning formal proceedings to revoke your law degree for academic fraud." Gasps filled the room, she continued. "And here is another notice: Stanford Ridge University is conducting its own review of your undergraduate degree. And the Missouri Legal Board is opening an investigation into whether you obtained your license through dishonest means." Then she drove the point home. "Your entire academic and professional foundation is collapsing, Senator. And during all of this, you chose today, this moment, to question my education." The hearing room detonated into chaos. Senators were shouting across the table. Some demanded immediate ethics investigations. Others were calling for Hawley to resign. Reporters surged out of the gallery to file their breaking alerts. Within minutes, the phrase #HawleyFraud was trending across every major platform. Conservative pundits who once bragged about Hawley's genius scrambled to distance themselves. Liberal commentators openly admitted they were stunned at the scale of the deception. Hawley's behavior said even more than Crockett's evidence. Instead of defending himself, instead of providing explanations, he sat completely frozen, silent, pale, and visibly shaking. The shock, the anger, the fear, and finally the resignation all passed across his face like collapsing waves. When the committee chair finally asked whether he wished to respond, Hawley didn't even open his mouth. Instead, his attorney rose and announced that the senator would be invoking his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. The statement landed like a hammer. It was not a confession, but it was as close to one as anyone could give without speaking the words. The aftermath hit Washington with hurricane force within hours. Eastbridge Law confirmed they were preparing to revoke Hawley's degree. Stanford Ridge issued a statement launching a parallel review. Midwest State University, the institution that once hired him as a professor, announced they would seek repayment of salary earned through fraudulent credentials. The Missouri Legal Board launched an emergency review of his license, and the Supreme Court stated they were examining clerkships obtained using falsified qualifications, potentially impacting every ruling Hawley assisted during his time there. Politically, the fallout was immediate. Republican senators who once stood by Hawley began backing away. Senator Creighton, who often appeared with Hawley as part of the intellectual conservative wing, claimed he had always suspected inconsistencies in Hawley's academic story. Senator Rourke announced he would not co-sponsor any more legislation with Hawley. and the Republican Leadership Council removed Holden from every internal committee. Calls for his resignation echoed across cable news and social media. Even some from his own party began suggesting he no longer had the credibility to serve. Federal prosecutors worked quickly. They discovered Holden had listed his fake credentials on federal disclosure forms, on security clearance applications, and on sworn Senate documents. Every false statement carried potential felony charges. The total money Holden had earned through falsified academic achievement salary, book deals, speaking fees, and board payments rose above $10 million. Investigators also uncovered a wider network. Holden's exposure opened a massive door into other academic fraud schemes, involving politicians and judges from elite universities. Several federal judges suddenly announced early retirement. At least 3 other senators were found to have exaggerated or fabricated academic achievements. For Senator Holden, the collapse was complete and irreversible. His book publisher immediately canceled his contract and demanded the full return of his advance. His speaking agency removed him from their roster without hesitation. The boards and organizations he once served on voted to cut all ties the same day. His political fundraising committee watched donations disappear almost instantly. Staff members began resigning in large numbers, unwilling to be connected to a growing scandal built on lies. Within a week of the hearing, Senator Holden had fallen from being celebrated as a rising conservative figure to becoming a political outcast. His name quickly became shorthand for academic fraud, dishonesty, and manufactured intelligence. The cultural impact reached far beyond Washington. The exposure of Holden's scheme sparked a nationwide conversation about elitism in education and how prestigious degrees were often used as tools to control access to powerful positions. Colleges and universities throughout the country launched stricter systems to verify academic work. Investigations revealed that the practice of wealthy students buying assignments from struggling classmates had been far more common than anyone realized. Pushing schools to introduce new protections against academic misconduct, law schools especially faced major reforms. The American Bar Council issued new national rules requiring verified academic records for bar applicants. Law reviews across the country adopted plagiarism detection software and required contributors to sign paperwork, confirming their submissions were original and personally written. The entire culture that allowed someone like Holden to weaponize a fake academic passed while demeaning the genuine achievements of graduates from smaller or public institutions faced a long overdue reckoning. For Representative Crockett, the Showdown changed everything. She rose to national recognition not just as a strong lawmaker, but as a fierce advocate for academic honesty and merit-based achievement. Her calm, document-based dismantling of Holden's lies, paired with her defense of public education, resonated with millions of Americans who had spent years working honestly for their success. The moment she revealed the folder labeled Holden Academic Fraud became one of the most widely shared political images of the decade. The broader impact on American politics was profound. After the scandal, new rules required all federal candidates to submit verified transcripts before running for office. Using educational credentials as a political weapon became far more dangerous. Once every claim could be challenged and fact-checked, the assumption that elite universities always produce superior individuals collapsed. Many Americans realized that prestige alone meant nothing if the work behind the degree wasn't real. 6 months after the hearing, Senator Holden was indicted on 17 federal charges, including fraud, conspiracy, and providing false statements. The trial exposed even more damaging details about the scale of his dishonesty. Former classmates testified about the academic for-hire service he ran at Eastbridge Law. Professors spoke openly about the pressure they faced to pass him despite his lack of performance. Financial analysts calculated the total fraud at more than $15 million. Once every salary, book contract, and speaking fee based on fake credentials was included, the verdict was unanimous. Holden was found guilty on all counts. He received an 8-year federal prison sentence and was ordered to repay every dollar tied to fraudulent achievements. When issuing the sentence, the judge noted that Halden had corrupted not only his own career, but had encouraged and enabled corruption in others, damaging the credibility of America's educational and legal systems. The sentence was designed to serve as a clear warning. Academic fraud used to obtain public power would be punished with the same severity as any major financial crime. Eastbridge Law Institute and Stanford Ridge University both formally revoked Halden's degrees, the first time either institution had taken such action against an active senator. The Missouri Legal Board permanently disbarred him, preventing him from ever practicing law under any circumstances. His name was removed from every honor, board, and program that had once relied on his falsified resume, the version of senator. Halden, who mocked Crockett's education, was gone. What remained was a cautionary reminder of the dangers of building a career on deception rather than skill. Perhaps the longest-lasting impact of the scandal was how it changed the way Americans viewed academic credentials. Public universities saw an increase in applications from students who now believed genuine effort mattered more than prestige. Employers shifted their focus toward demonstrated ability rather than institutional name, and the automatic advantage given to graduates of elite schools was replaced with a more balanced understanding. What you actually learn and accomplish matters far more than where you went. If the exposure of this historic academic fraud scandal opened your eyes to the importance of real achievement, the dangers of purchased prestige, and the value of honesty in education, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell, because we will continue revealing the truth behind the qualifications of those who claim superiority based on their school name, instead of their real work and genuine accomplishments.